Hi there gentlefolk, this is the old ancient one back again. Before I get this little tutorial session underway, as in a live class, the students always get just a little bit of chat so that they know what we're about to do. Now, I know my starting point, I don't work from a script, and I know my finishing point. What happens in between is anybody's guess, including mine. But I'm not going to waste your time with the camera on me. What I want you to do is I want to show you a little run around my workstation, and I'm talking about materials, and to give you a little bit of insight into what's happening in this old head of mine. Right now, look, you can see I've got my brushes in a pot. Look, I've got a toilet roll there because I'm doing watercolours, and if I get too much water on my brush I can just remove it very quickly just by touching that. I've got my paints here. I've also got a box of tube paints. I've got my old plate palette there, right? Oh, plus my cup of tea. I can't work without that. But no, look, I've also got 2 bowls of water. One to wash the brush in, and the second one I'll keep fairly fresh all the time just to rinse it out so it doesn't cross-contaminate the colours which I'm going to use. Look, I've also got an overhead light here. My eyes not being what they were, I need extra light. So if you're struggling with light, get yourself a little a daylight lamp. You can get them LEDs now, much cheaper than this old fluorescent one. Right now, this is my drawing board, and look, it's balancing on an old stool so that I can rest it in my on my lap and tip it up and down to control the colours. Right, now here is a little collection of little sketches I've been doing, and remember when I was talking about the apples and the grapes and things like that, you need to have sacrifice pieces, so there's lots of sacrifice pieces here. And what actually happens, and I think this is important for me to say, I don't just suddenly think, oh, one day I'm going to draw a hippopotamus and I'll jump out there and get my drawing board out and draw a hippopotamus. Life is not like that. So therefore, what I'm actually doing is I've got a strange idea in my head. Okay, it's a strange old head. But now what I need to do is I can describe it in words, but much better still, if I can show you what's in my head visually, that's better. But I don't always know exactly what is in my head. So in this particular case, I'm thinking about a snowman because it's coming up to Christmas. So what I do is I quickly sketch up things, and they are really that's all they are. They're just sketches, and I'm letting them develop as I go. Right now, in this particular case, now here's my strange thinking. In my mind, my imaginary mind, snowmen are with us all the year round. It's just that they're not visible until such times as it snows. So I thought to myself, how about an invisible snowman? It's just starting to snow, so he's starting to build himself. So look, I don't know if you can see that on the camera. I picked up a snowball and he's building his own head. That didn't really function. It didn't work, right? I don't know where he starts building himself from, ground up or head down. And then I thought to myself, well, maybe if he was invisible and the snow's coming down, and as the snow's settling on him, he can now become visible. So that is an idea I played around with. I tried getting a snowman to build a snowman, but that didn't really work either. So look, I've now sketched up, here we go, I've sketched up, don't know if you can see that, a jolly snowman, because it's now starting to snow, so therefore he's a happy little snowman. And to get him jumping around, I decided to put legs on him. I ran with that idea, and this is on computer paper, by the way, so it's all wrinkles up, but all I'm doing is just flashing ideas down, and allowing things to develop within my skills and within my imagination, and that's what you actually need to do. I've looked at that. Yes, I think I could actually make that work, but since doing that, another idea has crossed my mind about the snowman making snowmen, and I've come up with this. Why not a snow baby? That's going to be just a little bit different. So it's going to be a snow mum and a snow baby at this moment in time. Now what I actually do is I scribble these down and I use my tracing paper. Now you need to go back to my holly or my still lifes, and you'll see how I use my tracing paper, and I can use it over and over and over again, because I can just get an erase, and look, there's my part of my still life there. So a nice pad of tracing paper. If that is not available, look, go with it. This is what you use for on your baking tray. It's not over greasy, so if you haven't got tracing paper, go for the baking paper. And what I've done is I've done a number of sketches on odd bits of computer paper. Can't see any here at the moment. And then gradually I put the head in, I put a moon in, and then I move my tracing around till I've got the position where I want the moon to go, and then I just trace it on there. And I keep making all my alterations. And if you go back to my old videos, you'll see the advantages of doing this. So what it is getting something out of your head, getting it down onto something which is now visible. Okay folks, right, you've had a little look around my workstation. You've had a little bit of an insight into my little fantasy head. Now if you feel that there is something of interest to you here, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to suggest that while I go off and refresh my cup of tea, you go off and get yourself either a cup of tea, cup of coffee, or maybe something a little bit stronger, so that when you come back we can draw up a stool here next to my drawing board, or in this case roll up a snowball, and you can watch me playing around in my watercolour pool here. Right, a thought has crossed my mind. There is nothing worse than watching somebody else splashing about in a pool. It's a bit like turning up at a pool and people are splashing around and you've forgotten to bring your gear. Well, hey ho, look, in this case, go skinny dipping. My eyes will be on my drawing board. Do whatever you feel you need to do to make yourself comfortable, and this is not about perfection. This is about the enjoyment of painting. And that is what it is all about. I do not do perfection, right? So, hey ho, let's do it. Right now, okay folks, I have decided to go along with the Snow Mum and Snow Baby. Right, so I've transferred this from my sketch using my tracing paper, and I've transferred it onto a bit of cartridge paper. It's fairly heavyweight, you can hear it. Now ideally, obviously, watercolour paper would be better, and it would be better if it was stretched, because look, bear in mind I'm going to be putting a wash on there, but I know the nature of my students. they see something, they want to do it straight away. They're not prepared to start stretching out paper, especially with Christmas coming up a bit close. So they're going to go with whatever they've got, and that is what I'm going to do in this particular case. This is not a professional bit of work, okay? So I will now get this underway. Okay, that's my clean, fresh water and a smallish brush, and I'm just going to cut round the critical parts with plain water. Remember, I'm going to be putting a wash on. There we go. Cut round the moon. I see the moon sees me. Right, now I'm now going to go to a big brush and damp the whole of the paper where the wash is going to go. Now I do know that this is going to wrinkle a little bit, so that's going to give me a few more added problems, but that is the price one pays if one doesn't do the preparation work. Right, now I'll now leave that to dry. When I say dry, I want the paper damp. Now, do not be tempted to go and get your hairdryer. Yes, you will dry the wetted area of the paper out, but you will dry everything else out around it. And so when you come back to do work on the drier areas of it painting, your paper will give you a jolly good hiding, and you'll suffer the consequences. So if you decide to use a hairdryer, either waft it like that, which is not a good idea when the wash is on there, but if you do use a hairdryer, no heat. Right, now what is permissible, if you've got any big water puddles on there, you can just dab them out very gently. Don't scrub, straight down, straight off with a little bit of tissue. Right, now an alternative way of damping your paper to that is you can actually turn your paper over, damp the area where your wash is going to go, wait for the puddles to appear, and then just dab them off, and your paper will have absorbed some water. But by going by this process, I've caused a little dry fence. Well, this is really exciting, isn't it? You and I sitting here watching a bit of plain water dry. Right, so I'm going to take this opportunity and say, for the more experienced watercolourists, if you've got masking fluid and a big flat brush, now would be the perfect time to use it. You can use the masking fluid on the moon and certainly around the snow mum's head, right? But that is for the more experienced. The deeper end of the watercolour pool, and they will be swanning around or gliding around like swans, looking superb. But meanwhile, you and I, we're down the shallow end and we're still splashing about, right? So I'm not going to be using those items, and I'm going to be assuming you don't have them. So I'm going to stay down the shallow end with you and splash about to make sure you don't drown. And in reality, it's actually more exciting. Okay, let's get this wash underway. Right, now here is my ultramarine blue wash, and it is within the student range of colours. I'm talking quality wise. It's a medium wash, as you can see, and I will explain that to you in a moment. And I've got two brushes. I've got the slightly smaller one here just to get round the detail, and then I'll get away with the larger one. Right, now here we go, folks. Just around the hat. Around the shoulder and scarf. Around the hat. I'm going to keep that puddle wet there, by the way. If it runs down the paper, it doesn't really matter. Okay, right, now off and away now with the large brush. Trying to keep these, look, trying to keep all those edges of the puddles wet. Right, now look, I'm going from side to side, and I'm going out past what will be the crop mark. There we go. Right, keep that puddle going out. Look, right up to the edge. Don't let that puddle there dry. Right, now, if you run out of wash when you're going down here, do not suddenly stop and mix up some more wash. Just pick up plain water and continue on down with it. Now note, I've gone straight over the moon. The moon is momentarily out. Right, now, it is as fast as that. I just went back there because there was a little tiny white hole there. That was a silly thing to do because I will suffer with that. But in this particular case, I don't mind if it's just a little bit on the blotchy side, because it will actually create more interest. So I will now leave that to dry naturally. If I go back on this, by the way, I'm just going to go back on this over there, you'll notice that in actual fact what I'll actually do is I will disturb that wash. Well, what do you know, he hasn't disturbed it. But that is what will happen. If you go back over the top of that, you will disturb it. So best leave it. If need be, it's possible to do this wash again, providing you can do it with a sort of speed which I tended to do it there. It won't get too much of a chance to drag the first wash up. Right, now I'm going to leave that, and I like these, the paper's very buckled, by the way, and I quite like that because that will leave me some interesting little blotches there. Now, having said that, I now need to find the moon. I've just rinsed out my brush, I've touched my toilet roll, find the moon and lift it out. There we go, folks, the moon is back. How's about that then? Right, now, as I said, I'm now going to leave this to dry naturally. So, meanwhile, I will probably go off and refresh my cup of tea, and you can do whatever it is, what makes you comfortable. You can find your brushes, because when we come back I'll be splashing about in this water pool again. Or I know you're a creature of impulse, or even find just swimming cosy. I'll be back in a moment, folks. Right, folks, I'm now back, and this little wash has now had time to dry. Oh, I noticed you didn't have time to find your cosy. Never mind. Right. The other thing which I actually had a chance to run that little clip back, and I noticed that my silvery flyaway hair, I forgot to gel it down, which is one of the tasks I do. So I will pick up on that and try and keep my head out of the way. Right, now, need to be getting a little bit serious now. Look, have a closer look at my wash. And this is where all your gremlins will start to come in, because you'll look at it and it will be blotchy. It might even be more blotchy than one I've got here. But this is the whole exercise of teaching. You will be looking at all the negatives, and I will be looking at all the positives, and they're the positives that you cannot see, because you look at something and it's a bit on the blotchy side. Yes, it is. This is not slick. If it was slick, I would have masked out the moon and the head and used a big brush and gone straight across it. It would have been boring. If I was doing this professionally, I would be working 4 times this size, and the sky, which you see on the commercial Christmas cards, they're sprayed, right? So you're not going to get all these blotchy bits. And it is these blotchy bits which tells you that it is a hand-painted watercolour painting, and that is of great interest, as opposed to just spraying. It's like spraying a car, right? It's just green. But in this particular case, it is not just blue, it's an interesting blue. Right, now I'll come back to what I was saying earlier, and I was talking about washes. Look, that is a strong wash, that is a mid wash, and that is a weak wash. Right, so I was going for this mid wash. I've got the mid wash here and there, but whatever it is I've got, that will now set the tone for the rest of the actual painting. So I will now stop the chat and start to move on. Right, now I have changed my rinse water so it's nice and fresh again. I've gelled my hair so you won't get that silver haired yeti creeping across your snow scene. And I'm going to use the same wash as what I used on the original sky there. And look, if you look down there, you'll notice that little bit where I double coated. And what I'm going to be doing now is I've got a smaller brush and the paper is dry, and I'm going to put in 1 or 2 distant, let me zoom that right in now, and they're the tops of the Christmas trees in the distance, and I need to put them in now, because once I put a tree on front of it, I can't really put them back in again. Now, I don't need too many of them. So in this particular case, less is more. Same over here. Now look, you can always test this on the outside of your wash where you're going to crop it off. And you may have noticed, or I certainly noticed, when I was doing the first original wash, I was talking about taking the brush from side to side, And at one point I actually went vertically down there, but that was outside of my known crop area. Right, I've got some there. Let's get a few more here. And I don't know if you noticed, but look, I'm going up with these, like I did on my original little demonstration Christmas tree. Because they do, in actual fact, the branches grow upwards. And it's not until they get much lower down that as they spread out here, that they start to sort of droop over, and they'll droop over even more once they've got a weight of snow on there. So I've got look, I've got 3 on that side, and I've got 2 on this side. So where shall I go? Right, now I want, yeah, okay. Now I'm moving up to my cropped area there now, that line down there, so it means to say I've got space over there if I want to fiddle about. Right, now that will do, because look, if I put 3 on that side and 3 on that side, it's getting monotonous. It's a bit like putting things on a shelf. Just because you've got to duck that end, you've got to put a duck. Right, I'm sorry about that sudden cut off, folks. I seem to have a camera glitch. My equipment is only really for home use, it's not professional. Now look, I haven't gone so far that I can't actually double back. Now what I've done, look, I've got a crimson alizarin, rose madder, comes under different names, and I've got my blue wash here, and I'm going to add just a little touch of crimson into my blue wash. Now I'm going to put a little bit on the side there so you can see what it looks like, and then I'm going to zoom it in. No, I'll just move that up. Right, now you can see it's got that little tint of crimson in there. And the reason I'm going to do this is because it was all right on the Christmas trees, they're way back in the distance, but this problem of how to paint a polar bear on white snow, but what we do have, and move that camera back a bit, what we do have, we have a situation where all snow will cause shadows, and so what we're going to be doing is painting the actual shadows. And look, I've already done some, as you can see, so I'm going to put in a few more and I'm going to show you how I did it. I've got fresh water, and let me find an area. Up here, and I'm putting fresh water along a shaded area, and then I'm going to put a tissue on it and just gently lift that water off. I'm then going to get my shaded area, I don't want it too jerky, I want it slightly plumpish. Let me just zoom that in again. And I'm going to let gravity drop the shade down to the area. I've just got fresh water, and I'm very quickly softening off the top. And then I will allow the gravity to give me the snow line. So obviously the further back it is, the softer it will be, and gradually as I come forward it will get a little bit harder, a little bit stronger in colour. There we go. Now can you see that? What I'm going to do, I'm going to take a chance, I'm going to look, there we go. And you can see on this one, look, this one's a little closer, so therefore the shading is just a little bit harder. And that is the only way I can actually put footprints in the snow, or in this particular case, a snowman. So what I will be doing will be painting the shadows, bearing in mind the moon is at the top here, so the shadows will be coming down onto the actual snowman. And I know this is getting a little bit complex, but as the light comes down, under the hat will be slightly darker than the top of the hat. So I shall put those in. I'm just going to give you an example of it now. Fresh water. Around the shadow of the hat. Under there. Right, that little bit on the top is not, that little section there is lighter because it's not under the hat. And look, I'm going to take this water, no I'm not. I'm just going to lift that off. Get a slightly smaller brush. And put that shadow under the hat now. Now this is what is known as underpainting. Let me zoom that in even closer if I can. There we are. It could be a little stronger than that. There we go, underpainting. Now I'm going to let gravity drop to the bottom. Can you see that? You can just about see it. And I'll do the same with the other side. There we go. That one worked a little better. That one is a little bit disappointing, so I'm just going to plonk it in again. Now look, when I say I'm going to plonk it in again, remember, do not fiddle about too long with this once you've got a wash on there. 3 moves is about as far as you can go without you actually disturbing it all. So although that is not going to be the colour of the hat, I've already got a little bit of underpainting in there. And while I'm here, let's get a little bit braver. I'm going to need the same thing on the snowman in between the scarf. Because I don't want to leave just a white hole there, just because it's snow. And the reason I've chosen that bit is because once again I will allow gravity to play its role. Here we go. Right, now we will get a little bit of shading under the scarf. And certainly more in where it's getting close to where there's contact going on. So I'm turning my board around so that the gravity drops it into this little tight corner there. I'll just soften that top bit off. Right, now I'm going to move that in even closer still if I can. There you go. Right, now you can see that gravity is taken into that little tighter area, and I've got a little bit of shading underneath the scarf because the scarf will cause a certain amount of shading. So there's not quite as much as I want there, but I might do that again, and I'm going to be doing the same on the actual head here. So look, there's an awful lot of work for me to do here, and the video time is limited, so I will be doing a lot of this. I will in actual fact film it, but I will probably put it on high speed just so you can see the whole process going on without words. Right, now I'm zooming back again just in case, and I know there are some Hawkeyes out there, they think I've got a magic watch, which means to say when I'm painting time stands still. No, the watch, as the battery's gone flat, I use the watch to try and focus my camera. Okay, so it's not a magic watch. Okay, right, now before I get this speed painting underway, I just need to explain a couple of things here to you. Look, I was looking at the underpainting and letting the wash drop underneath the hat. I will also be putting a wash under the trees, the lower part of the trees, because once again I will not be able to put them in there at a later date. And the trees at the back, I'm going to put a blue wash there. Now these are going to be behind a snow line. In other words, they're further away. Okay, you can just about see the wash there. And then I'm going to let that dry, and now I come back with a little bit more detail about what I'm doing. Now, as soon as the drop is in that direction anyway, I can do a little bit more before I go ahead there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a smaller brush, and on the snow mum's nose I'm just adding a little bit of water on there. Then I'm getting a little bit of my warmer wash, and I shall drop it below her nose, like so. Let me zoom that right in now if I can. There it is, just below her nose. Fresh water. Soften off the top. And the gravity will drop that wash underneath the nose, or underneath, in this case, the carrot. Because if I don't do that, it will just look like an orange hole in her head, and I don't want that. So it's like I say, it's a very simple picture, but the process is quite a complex one. And when I'm coming back, look, I've got that drop on the underneath of the hat, but I also want a drop under that on her face, right, under the hat, and I don't want it to drop down in a straight, sort of straightish line. I could, because sometimes shadows tend to do that, but I want it a little bit softer, and I want it to look as though her head is making contact with the head. And I could do the lower half, because I want the drop to drop on the lower half. So it means to say I'm going to be doing this as a separate, and maybe just a little bit down there by the scarf, where the scarf the scarf is going over her face, just a little bit. I will also do the same around the baby's head there. So give me a moment, I'll just let this drop wash dry out, because if I suddenly turn that around now, that drop in the lower half will go up to the top, and I certainly don't want that. Right, now before I go flashing away with my brush, I'm just going to show you in close detail what I was talking about when it came to this underpainting around the actual head. Right, now I'm going to drop that wash pick up my plain water and soften off the top. Now I'm going to leave it to drop towards the hat. Let's see if I can get that closer. There we are. And I will not be waiting every moment for this, because what I will actually do is a bit hard along the top there, but it doesn't matter, because the hat will throw the shadow there. I will be looking for, I'll leave that just for a moment, any areas which need the drop in that direction. So when I come to do the side of the snow lady, I will be doing it and turning my board around so that the wash drops down towards her foot. That will give me a slightly heavier wash down the bottom. And then when I come to do the other side, I will be turning my board around, putting a wash on, and then turning my board completely up the other way, and I'm going to do that now, to allow the wash to drop down into this area down there. And so I will be searching and looking for the areas or directions I want this drop to drop. Right, now before I start flashing about with my brush, I've got a technical problem here which I would just explain, because it will be too fast and you won't see it. look, I've got the Snow Baby here, and I don't want a flat Snow Baby, so I will put a gentle shadow, drop shadow, as the roundness of the baby comes in. And it will be a gentle one. But I also need a drop or shadow under the baby around the mum's tummy there. So I will do this section there, I will let it dry, turn the board upside down, and then come back in on that lower wash on the baby's bottom. Okay, now if there's anything of more interest as I'm actually going, I will stop and talk you through it. Right, now, point of interest. I've done the shading underneath the Snow Baby here. Unfortunately, you missed it on the clip because I had yet another glitch on my electrical equipment. But while I'm here, look, notice this rather heavy line here. That was caused because when I was tracing the image onto the paper, I used pastel dust. And it's picked up a little bit of that pastel dust. The only way I could avoid that sort of thing is to actually remove some of the dust before I start it so that only I can see it. But then the camera can't see it. In truth, neither can I with my eyes these days. But these little things are sent to try us. Right, while I'm here, look. As I'm putting on these controlled washes, they're not really that controlled because look at my paper now. It is wrinkled and bumpy as hell. What I can do is I can get my big flat wet brush and just wash the back of it, and that will ease one or two of those wrinkles out. Right, now I have done that. Look, it has not solved the problem, but it has certainly eased it a little bit. So, look, I could have put a weight of a book on it. Maybe that might have helped. Look, I know what you like. Do not start thinking about ironing it. Look, I have heard about this. But that is going to extremes. So I'm going to continue on putting my washes in. What is getting to me a little bit is these glitches. They're gremlins and they're a real pain. But I'm going to go as far as I can. I've changed the card, I've changed the battery. it is what it is, so let's do it. Right, okay folks, I'm now losing too many clips too frequently, and the problem with this is that I can rechat, but I cannot repaint a painting which is gone. So what I'm proposing to do at this moment in time is to close up this part one. I will continue on painting these little tiny bits around there, because you know what I'm doing. And look, I knew I was living life on the edge when I first started this, because I'd had a couple of weeks trying to sort this equipment out, and I thought, well, let's go for it, let's wing it. Even to a point where I didn't do a dry run on this one, but you know, us artists, we love to live dangerously. And so what I'm going to do is, look, I've done a visual using kids' crayons as to where I'm now proposing to go. And by the way, this is just kids' crayons, and look, it's drawn on the inside of a cereal box. What do you mean I'm cheap? So look, when I come back, I may well replace this part one if I can finish it. When I come back, hopefully I will have sorted out my equipment, and it's like I say, I'm normally very laid back, but this one is getting to me a little bit. So can I just say, if anybody's watching this part one and you want to see part two, and I will get it up there at some point, go below there and click on my image or name. That will take you to my channel, and if you also click on the follow button, it will mean to say that you'll be notified when the next video actually comes up. Now, the reason I'm going to taking a risk on this one is I'm moving up very close to Christmas now, and you need to get some sort of opportunity, and you're running out of time. There's no point in bringing it out 1 week before Christmas. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my good lady indoors, the lady Colleen, to proofread and watch what I've already got on here, and if she gives it the thumbs up, I'm going to send it out. Right, now when it comes to part two, and talking about living dangerously, I know you're a person of artistic bent, and you also like to live life on the edge, but I would suggest look, the moon will start coming out, so I would suggest that you find yourself a nice big woolly jumper, right? And it could possibly start snowing. So you've been warned, folks. Bye now.